Okay, we are live. Welcome to SEOTalk live webinar. After a gap of couple of months, but we are back and we are excited to have our dear friend and special guest for today's session, Krinal Mehta. Krinal bhai, welcome to SEOTalk. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here and welcome everyone. Morning from which looks like not so sunny morning Friday here in Waterloo, Ontario. And good evening, good afternoon to folks joining from India. Hope everyone's having a had a good week and are looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, I think so. Everyone is getting up to binge watch and what's going on in the Trump, Elon Musk
Yep.
conversations. Everyone is glued to that. But yeah, we are here Friday evening. Uh, we have a super productive set of conversation set up for today's session. And we will right away jump into it. But before that, I'll just put out a couple of hygiene items. Those who have joined, I think so. Keyur shares a couple of guys have already joined who are listening to us live. So please do comment where are you joining from in the comments. And if you have any questions along the way, please share it across. So today's session is inspired from uh, Krinal Bhai attending SEO week in the last week of April, and we wanted to bring him on this show on SEO live show, and he has got a lot of SEO wisdom and nuggets to share with us. And today, for today's session, we'll get started with relevance engineering and a lot of nuances around it. So yeah, here we are. So my very first question to you, Kunal, is how was your experience at SEO Week? How is that conference different than other conferences happening in the SEO world? Like, happy to know your raw thoughts around it.
Yeah, no, great question to kick this off. Before I answer the first question, just wanted to say if you are able to hear me, see me, just making sure that the audio and video is working and I'm not talking to Parth here all alone, just drop in a hi or drop in your favorite SEO meme. My favorite or SEO joke. My favorite SEO joke more recently has been, I think, the one that Cyrus had posted a while back, week or two back, which has been the favorite joke for SEO for decades, but it has a new version. So the old joke was, where do you hide a dead body in Google? That is page two. We've known that. The new answer to that is page one.
That's
You still
crazy.
don't.
Can't
So
agree more.
that's my favorite. Sorry for the dad joke, but yeah, let's jump into it. So my experience at SEO Week NYC was enriching, to say the least. Uh, I've attended quite a few conferences around the world. Last year, I went to. Well, I've been going to SEO IRL here in Toronto for the last 3 years. I've been to Tech SEO Rally last year, and all of these are great conferences. SEO Week in particular was different in a few different ways. It's different in a few different ways. One is it was a 4 days event, so it wasn't like a 1 day session, and so you literally had so much content, but also so much more time that you could spend with speakers, but also other attendees. People flying in from all over the world attending. I think they had people coming in from a few dozen countries at least. And so having the opportunity to spend more time and getting to interact with more people just kind of widens your horizons. My number one reason why I attend industry events is to see how everyone else is kind of doing their own thing, because our pains, our challenges are common. And so it's interesting to see everyone's perspective. And SEO it's not a defined playbook. Like it's not like accounting, where there are set standards and set principles. And so there's literally a million plus one ways of doing SEO, right? For all sorts of businesses. And so it's just interesting to kind of meet people, know from their experience of how do they approach SEO? You meet people from been running SEO for a brand like Rocket Mortgage, big US brand, or people from HubSpot, people who specialize in YouTube SEO, people who specialize in AI agents, doing SEO with AI agents. So that is great. The second thing was a lot of the speakers I've seen for the first time, like people who I've been following for decades, who content I've been consuming for decades, from who's of the industry. We had Will Reynolds, Rand Fishkin, Cindy Crum, Annie Cushing, all of these people. Like I've been consuming their content, learning SEO and implementing SEO, practicing SEO, for many, many years. Barry Schwartz, and you get to meet them. And finally, it's the content. I think the speakers put in a lot of effort to share the best content that they had to share. So it was very enriching, might I say, transformative in many ways. And I felt an urge, a need to say, I need to pay this forward. And so I've been trying to come up with ways where I can share this, whatever I've learned, I've picked over in that week with a broader SEO community.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing your experience and your objective, your purpose to attend SEO week. And thanks for being so generous to be part of this community and come forward and share it with the community. So we really appreciate it. Awesome. We'll right away jump into the topic. And so, in this advent of AI and how we are transitioning from the traditional SEO to the LLM SEO or GEO or AEO, there are a lot of terminologies out there. Where does this relevance engineering bit fall in the ecosystem, like the whole
Yeah,
process of SEO?
yeah, it's a great question. So also wanted to say a big shout out to Parth, Malhar, and the whole SEOTalk team here for setting this up and for having me, for giving me the stage to share this message as far and wide as we can share. Because I think the answer to that question is why we need to talk about this. So relevance engineering does not fall anywhere on that spectrum uh, of what you just asked. It's a different way of thinking about SEO. Uh, it's starting from acknowledgement, wherein we need to acknowledge that the web ecosystem, as we've been consuming it, has fundamentally changed. Uh, Not all of your audience is going to Google the way they did in 2015. They might very well be going to Instagram and searching for restaurants, or they might be going to TikTok and searching for finance tips, or they might be going to Pinterest and searching for home decor ideas and might be just kind of deciding what they want to buy. And so the audience is on many different platforms consuming content, and so search is not just Google search is on all these different platforms. So that fundamental shift has happened, and we've seen this. We just haven't been intentionally focused on optimizing for all of these surfaces. I say optimizing, I think we need to start there's a lot of rewiring that we need to do, which is engineering for these surfaces. So that is one. The other thing is, with the advent of AI, and especially in the last year or two, the pace at which AI is being consumed. I say AI, actually, it's the generative models that most people consume or use. I think the delta, and I like to quote Kunal Shah from Free Charge. He has this theory of, if the delta is big enough between the current state and the future state, then people are just likely to move. Like when Uber was introduced, you had to go, if you had to book a taxi, you had to go to a certain place and then haggle and discuss the rates, and then you had to wait for days, and then maybe you get a taxi, something like that. Uber is like, I open my phone, tap a button, here comes a cab, which is fully certified, license, I'm safe, all that good stuff. And so the delta was too big. Same thing with Airbnb. The delta was too big, and so everyone just sort of migrated over. I think that is what is fundamentally happening even in the search space, wherein AI or generative AI with the LLMs, talk about ChatGPT, adoption of ChatGPT, or now AI overviews, AI mode, the delta is very high. And so because the delta is high, it's more convenient for people to kind of consume information. I think is the primary reason why people are adopting these surfaces. And so knowing that the consumption of content is changing, knowing that there are different ways of how people access information, make decisions of, businesses to interact, transact with, so on and so forth, that fundamentally shifts how we present this information, how we get the right information across to the user on all of these different surfaces. So that's the underlying context of relevance engineering, or where relevance engineering comes from. I hope that answers the question.
Totally. I think so. There needs to be like there's a lot of requirement of doing unlearning and relearning in
Yes.
this space at this point of time. And yeah, as you rightly mentioned, rewiring is the need of the hour for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I think so. After we have been following, like, you have been in the industry for like probably more than 15 years. I've been there for like 9-10 years now, and we used to follow Hamlet Batista and
Yes.
I forgot the name of the other guy who is also no more, but he used to
Bill
decode
Slawski.
patterns. Bill Slawski, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
SEO by the Sea. So these were the two veterans, but now they are no more. And I think so. Mike, who organized this conference, is following the legacy, and he is now decoding a lot of patents and putting it in front of the whole SEO fraternity to kind of learn and pave that path. So it's interesting. So, any particular insights on how he covered the topics that were part of this particular conference, and any particular insights around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, big shout out to Mike. All the reason I'm wearing the SEO week and the SEO week shirt here, have a SEO week bottle here as well, is just to say thank you to Mike, not just Mike, but the entire Alpur Rank team to organize this event. It was an immersive experience, and I keep saying you got to be there to experience it. Like there is no way that anyone can give you all the content. Even if you have all the content from the conference, you'll still not get the experience that Mike delivered. So big shout out. Like it is a lot of work to pull up such put up such a thing. Now, having said that, Mike was wearing those shirts. He was wearing shirts with, the graffiti, the actual picture of Hamlet, Batista, and Bill Sawski, and just to kind of pay his tribute to these legends that we've had in the industry who paved the path forward. Bill, I think, the first one to do it, or at least to my knowledge. So there is a lot that they've already done, which we can kind of piggyback off. And I think that's the nature of how technology works. You pick up on work that's already out there, and you can start building off of that. Uh, Using that, but he's also very technical, I'd say, in terms of, like, if you look at the SEO industry, there are people who enter SEO from sales, there are people who enter SEO from marketing, then there are some people who enter SEO from engineering, and those folks have leverage because they understand the underlying technology. Now, I have some leverage on all three sides. A, because I've studied computer engineering, and so I understand the fundamentals of how computers work and how programming works and yada yada yada. I don't practice engineering. Like, I've never been a professional computer engineer, software engineer myself, but I've studied it. Second, I've kind of started my career in sales, and so there's a lot of sales background that I carry with me, or use that skills in SEO. And then obviously marketing is where we kind of intersect. And so I think Mike really leverages his engineering skills to understand the patterns, or the work that they put out there. He also leverages his engineering skills to then whip up quick tools to test concepts, because there are hundreds of different patents out there, but until you test you are not sure which one is currently being used and in what way, shape, or form by Google or by anyone else, right? And so testing is important. Understanding is one piece, but testing is very, very different. And then because he works with all these enterprise clients, he gets to test this at scale. And then using his marketing, I think he's a great marketer too. He's able to put this out in plain English. I've attended Mike's session at SEO IRL last year. That was the first time I met him or I attended one of his talks. Then I went to Raleigh in September, attended another of his session at Tech SEO. And I half the session I was like, this is way above my head because he goes way too deep. But I'm like, I'm not going to give up. And so I go again at SEO week. And this time I get the front row seat, like literally the first front row seat when Mike's presenting. And I'm like, I absolutely want to understand everything he's talking about. And it was an incredible experience. And I'm more than happy to talk about that in the session today.
Lovely. Thanks so much for sharing the backstory and walking us through. Um, so I think so.
We do have
This
a
is
question in the comment. Do we want to pick up one question? I think Kaushik
yeah,
has a question.
yeah.
So, feel most events are product service pitches rather than actual knowledge sharing. Do you feel the same? Absolutely do. And the reason why I don't go to all the events, I go to a handful of events where I either know the organizers very well, like Steve runs the SEO IRL, uh, Mike ran the SEO week, and JR Oaks and team run the tech SEO uh, at Raleigh. And so these are the kind of events that I attend. Yes, a lot of events are actually pitches, and I don't mind someone pitching their service as long as there is enough value. Like it's the same concept we keep talking about is your anchor text needs this ratio of like exact match versus so it's like yeah like sell me but also like tell me so as long as there is enough value I don't mind someone trying to pitch there because hey they put in a lot of work too. So hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much for answering that question. So my next question to you is, where does the relevance engineering and the core semantics concept intersect? And I know we'll deep dive into this topic
Yeah,
in the following sessions, but like let us set an kind of an introduction and
I've
for it.
actually articulated that in the presentation. I can share that if you don't mind.
Sure, please go ahead.
All right. uh, okay, let's see if this works. Hope everyone's able to see my screen. Okay.
Yes, it's visible.
All right. So there's some context. I like to lay down context before jumping into topics. That way, we set the stage for people to understand why are we even here? Why do we even talk about this? Why do they even have to listen to this? No, you don't. Maybe you do. So here we go. So what's changed, and this is what we covered at the top. Traditional search is now changed to AI powered search. We know this. What does that mean? Up until now, we've seen Google kind of not up until now. I say now. Now is like maybe 2015 before Hummingbird and RankBrain and all of that came to the party. It was all keyword based ranking. You had the I think before 2008 when I started, actually 2008 as well when I started. The keyword meta tag I think was about to be deprecated, something like that. So it was very simple, right? And the technology was very simple back then. PageRank was the not the only, but the most had the most weightage in terms of the algorithm that Google used. And so as long as you had links, as long as you had content and you had the right keywords in your content, chances are you would rank. Well, that has changed. No more the case. And so we've gone from there to this AI powered search today. And there is a lot to unpack in between, where Google now has semantic understanding of the query. And so when you type in, what is web hosting, it kind of looks at web hosting and tries to see first it'll try and, kind of pull everything apart and see what entities are present in your queries. And when I say entities, people who don't know entities, back in I think 2015-ish is when Google acquired this company called Freebase, which had its own knowledge graph. And knowledge graph is where you have all these entities kind of in a graph. So think of like a vector space where these entities are connected to each other through some relationships, and so it's trying to match these entities and say, okay, web hosting is an entity. Who is this user? What do I know about them? What are they trying to find? Not literally by just the query itself, but what is the underlying intent? And so there is a lot of semantic understanding. Then there are AI overviews, and then there is passage level relevance. Now there is a bunch of other things. These are not the three only things, but these are the three most important things of what has changed. And so passage level relevance, when I say, we are talking about a concept called chunking, wherein up until now you had pages that ranked, but now it is no more about a page ranking. Now it is about these small passages. So imagine like if you have like a 1,000 word article or a web page with 1,000 words of copy, these small paragraphs that you have, which kind of add up to those 1,000 words, these are passages. And so those passages are now the answers, or could be the answers. The answers is no longer coming from, it's still coming from a page, but each passage, think of each passage as a page in itself. Okay, so fundamentally, the way that the search works has changed. And so traditional SEO approaches, the way that we've all been wired to, no longer work, are no longer sufficient. A lot of the concepts are still the same, which is good, which is what I like. I'm like, I can live with that, because if everything changes, like it's too hard to catch up. Uh, but the concepts are the same. A lot of the fundamentals are the same. We are still thinking about the customer, still thinking about the user all the time. And as long as you've been user centric first and search second, you will be able to thrive. So then we talk about relevance engineering, the definition. By the way, all of this content comes from I pull rank, and full credit to them. I've kind of added resources towards the end of the slide for the blog post where all of these concepts come from. Um, this relevance engineering is a data-backed approach to optimizing content for AI search systems that focuses on semantic relationships and vector representation. We'll talk about what vectors are, rather than traditional keyword optimization. So your classic SEO approach is like, hey, oh, you're a law firm, you're a personal injury law firm. Okay, let me pull up Ahrefs, let me pull up SEMrush, da 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 da, and you start going after keywords. Okay, here are all the personal injury law firm keywords in Canada. Here you have a list. Now let me start putting this together. Let me start mapping this into topics. Okay, we need 15 pages for service, 8 pages for blogs. That is no longer good enough. It's still better than not doing anything at all, but that's not good enough, because that's no longer how search works, right? And so that's your traditional SEO, where you had keyword density optimization, page level ranking factors, link building authority, and technical optimization, and you could call it a day if you were doing all this in the right way. In some, one thing I'd say at the top is there is caveat everywhere, right? Because I like to think of SEO as every query, Google has a finite set of results. Okay, and so within those finite set of results, it has to create a page one with 10 blue links, 5, 4, however many blue links. And so if you are in the remote island where there are not enough results, you might still be able to get away with the traditional SEO. Okay. So when I say that, like, consider that for the most part, what you're talking about is commercial in terms, where there is competition, well-established industries, multiple players. This is where Google has a ton of information on all of these topics. Think of things like SaaS, accounting software, HR software, CRM software, all of these. Or think of e-commerce, where you're like, buy baby diapers, this, that, like very commercial heavy terms, where you have the big boys at the party. And so Google has a lot of content. And so that is where we shift gears to relevance engineering, which is nothing but, it is a lot more, but the most important pieces are vector embeddings, and we'll talk about that. Passive level semantic relevance, I talked about that. Semantic triple structures, we'll talk about this, and then the understanding of how a AI system works. And if you have any questions on any of this, please feel free to drop them in the comments. If not, I'll keep going. So from there, we've talked about traditional search, and we talked about relevance engineering. Then we jump into how this shift happened. And so this shift is not overnight. What I'm trying to say is, we've been at it for a while. We just haven't realized as much. And the one big thing that Mike keeps talking about it, the tools are partly responsible for this, because all the tools, if you think about the SEO tools that we have today, are still very keyword focused, quote unquote, right? And so everyone's like, find your keywords, go after your keywords, da 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 da. And so you have your keywords, and the keywords will tell you. But that's all lexical search. That is how it used to work. It no longer works that way. We don't have tools that talk about intent understanding. I guess some of them are starting to do this to some degree. How well, debatable. Uh, no tool will give you like a knowledge graph. Well, I'm talking about the big tools at least, right? Featured snippets, rank, brain, and bird, and from there you go into conversational AI and passive level ranking. And so the shift is massive, which means we need to reset how we think about SEO. And today, the goal for me is just to share this concept of why we need to start thinking about SEO differently. And I say SEO, why we start need to think about content differently. And I hope I'm able to convey that toward the end of the presentation. So let's first talk about the new boy in town, vector embeddings. What are vector embeddings? Why do I even care? Why are you talking about mathematical things in a SEO webinar? Well, vector embeddings is your new uh, page level understanding, keyword level understanding, query level understanding, passive level understanding, and more. And let me explain. So think of, if every term on your page, whether it's a word, a phrase, a passage, had a mathematical score. So it's a mathematical representation to say, let's say, I'll pick up comments from here. Let's say, hi Parth and Krinal, joined from Mumbai. Now let's say this sentence has a mathematical score, say 0.30105, whatever that is. And then there is the next comment is hello everyone, and so maybe that has a mathematical score of 0.20105, whatever that is. And so if you think about a page on your website, the page itself, when you compute this for a page, it has a score, and then each passage also has a score. These scores are called vector embeddings. There are Python libraries out there that you could use to calculate vector embeddings. I think there are some tools that are starting to do some of this, and maybe in the next session I can do more examples, show and tell, and kind of share tools that I've used or been using to calculate vector embeddings. But a lot of this is open source, freely available, which is the whole concept of relevance engineering. Is like we can no longer rely on tools. We need to start working on this ourselves. And similar to how WordPress as an ecosystem has thrived because of open source, and all these other Linux and all these other open source ecosystems has thrived, relevance engineering is this new ecosystem that we as SEO community can build and share all these tools that we create for everyone to use it. How do these work? Words and phrases are converted to numerical vectors, and the graph on the right is where you see vectors. So the blue dot is a query, right? So the query that you search on Google is also converted into a vector, and the query is on that semantic dimension, a vector graph, uh, dimension space. Then your doc A and doc B, which are the green dots, are vector embeddings of those two pages, right? And so the distance between them really decides how close or away they are from the query. And the closest to the query is what is going to get served, because that is the most relevance. And this is why the concept is relevance engineering. It's all about relevance, if that makes sense. The red dot that there is the less relevant vector, and so it's far apart, as you can see on that graph. And so you can create this for your website, and you will see how close or far apart the pages on your website are from other pages. So it is just a way for you to understand how your website is structured. Are all these content pieces that you're putting together, are they tightly tied together? Are they far apart? So on and so forth. You could also do this for an industry. Let's say, I work for a company called Bluehost, and so we are a hosting provider. And so I would do this for hosting as an industry, or web hosting as a cluster. And I would say, okay, all these concepts, what are the closest, what are further away? And I'll focus on the closest ones first and then start working on the outer topics, so on and so forth. So that's vector embeddings in general. I also dropped in an example there to say dog and puppy. We know, because we understand things, that semantically they are the same, but they share no letters. Like it's not dog and dogs, right? And so it's not matching terms, but they still mean the same. And so you would see the same results being returned or similar results being returned. And this is how it works. All right. No questions so far. I will keep going. Parth, are we good, or
Yeah, we are good
you
here.
have
I think
more input?
you put it very simply out there. Like relevance engineering as a term seemed like a dark hole. Like what is that in context with SEO? But I think so. Uh, with the query semantics and how relevant it is, like you put it in very simple words. I think so. Overall semantic SEO is such a topic. Um, it's been out there since like 2 3 years, and SEO is trying to consume, but I still remember the content piece that you shared with me from I love SEO.net. Go and look
Yes.
up purely.
Yes.
Yeah, that is also very helpful. I'll share it in the YouTube comments so
Yes.
everyone can also. But yeah, let's continue. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So now that we know the fundamentals of how search works today, or how Google's kind of trying to interpret semantic meaning of the query and then semantic meaning of the content, and how they kind of work together, and that is what is actually the underlying fundamental that tells Google which page is more or less relevant to a certain query. We can now talk about this new Google I/O announcement of AI mode and how that works. AI mode was out there for a while, and then now it's more public, at least in the US. So how AI mode works, and this is another article that Mike put out, I think, while he was flying from a country to another or a city to another. So he's like a machine that kind of works. I don't know how he does that, but he just does. Uh, so I tried to bring some concepts from that as a addendum to this relevance engineering piece. So when we fire a query on Google, Google's actually first going to go and build all the context. So the thing I talked about, where Google's trying to pick all the entities from the queries, and then because Google knows a lot about the user, there is a lot of personalization. So it will pick context. Is this query a part of the conversation? What was the previous question? Not just this question. What was the previous question? So say you're let's say you are in Toronto and you're asking about, hey, this is Google already knows the time, so you're say, hey, can you tell me what's happening this weekend? So Google knows today is Friday, the weekend's coming, and so you are in the city because it knows the IP, and so it'll show you events near you, which is in Toronto, happening over the weekend. But the next question could be, what events are good for me? Well, now Google knows from your search history, if you enable that, and there's a lot of context. So you like this, you like music events, it will start prioritizing music events. So there is a lot of context, and there are a lot of behavior signals. Like if you type the same query from a mobile device versus a desktop, you'll likely see different results because there are behavioral signals that Google is also considering. So there's all a lot of context happening. It's not like when a query fires, Google goes to the index and quickly returns results. There is first this context that is happening, and then the document retrieval part happens, which is then kind of the whole vector graph piece is, okay, let me see what are the closest vectors and let me try and create an index of answers. And that's how AI mode works at a very high level. This is not all of it, but this is a very high level of how AI mode works. And then it will return the answer. The one big thing to call out here is your content in AI mode, AI overviews, may no longer be represented exactly the way that you've written it. Okay, because now Google has a really good understanding of the corpus. It can create its own content. That is what Google's doing. That is what ChatGPT is doing. Perplexity is doing. All of these LLMs are doing. They are generative models. They can create content. using the training data set. For Google, the training data set is the index that it has. And so don't be surprised if you don't see your content exactly the way it's written on your page. So Google can use the content that you have on the page. It can do chunking, which is passage indexing. It can pick up those passages or content from those passages, and then it can create its own content. So let's say, the query could be how to build a website. And so, your typical steps are buy a domain, buy hosting, set up hosting, install, pick a CMS like WordPress, or a site builder, something else, and then kind of go from there, design, develop content, da, 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 da. So these steps is what Google knows, because it has like 500,000 documents, I guess, by now people have written about how to build a website. So it knows the common consensus is these are the steps. Now, all the websites that have kind of mentioned these steps might come up as citations. Not all of them, some of them, which are the most relevant, again, from the vector, brand mentions, authority, all that good stuff. And so that's how AI mode works at a very high level. For us to get in there, we need to understand how it works the first place. That's why I talk about how AI mode works. Okay, there's a concept that I think Sydney presented in 2019. Says the Moz video on Moz video, yeah, on 2019 on the Moz blog, where she talks about fraggles. Or fragmented passages. This is what I keep talking about, passage indexing. So these are small specific chunks of content that directly answer the user. If so, as long as the content on your site is arranged in easy to find simple phrases that answer specific questions, you have a way better chance of having fraggles show up in AI overviews. Now also true for AI mode. So example here, what is the fuel economy of a BM i8? The Fraggle is the i8 has a 227 horsepower petrol engine, 129 horsepower electric motor. It can go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 4.4 seconds. And the answer is coming from a website that has this Fraggle. So as long as your answer has this in this format, easy to find, easy to pick up, easy to cite, the chances are that you'll get picked up. There are a few other things to also remember here. So one is the structure. The structure has to be simple phrases. Don't make it too complex. Don't try to go very brand heavy and try to show your literature skills by making it Oxford Dictionary level English, but also make it that. Use clear subject predicate object patterns. I know this is something that I think Steve also has a couple of notes on his SEO notebook, so feel free to Google that up. And I think he also created a GPT or something like that to create this. And I know Chris Cisco has also created something that you can use to create subject predicate object questions or sentences. So feel free to look that up. But essentially, what this is, or you could create your own. Now you have ChatGPT. As long as you structure sentences with clear relationships, because you need to understand generative AI LLMs are very lazy at the heart, and so because they are lazy, if you feed them the way they want to be fed, it's easier for them to cite you and easier for them to use your content. It's the exact same concept of XML sitemaps back in the glory Google days, right? Or structured data for that matter. You're making it easier for engines, engine will reward you for that. You're making it easier for LLMs, LLMs will reward you for that. And so here, BMW i8 is a subject, has is a predicate, and the 227 HP engine is the object. And so as long as you have the subject predicate object pattern in your sentence, chances are you will get picked up. And then don't make it too long. Keep it between 50 to 100 words. I'd say under 100 words to capture distinct semantic concepts clearly, because you need to stop thinking about getting your page ranked, and you need to start thinking about getting your passages picked up, right? So that's the fundamental shift of how we think about creating content. All right, see a couple of comments in their part. Do we have any questions? Are we good?
I think so. We are good. I shared a couple of resources
Lovely,
that you mentioned. Yeah.
lovely. All right. Uh, So here's an example of a semantic triple. What is a semantic triple? It's a subject predicate object pattern that significantly boosts retrieval accuracy and content relevance. So we talked about that. And here are a couple of examples. So Tesla Model 3 has 358 mile range, and Python is used for machine learning. Just a couple of examples to show how to use these semantic triples. And this is how LLMs kind of consume the content. This is how they understand. It's more less about consumption, is more about what do they understand. So in the previous world, we were using keywords for trying to drop keywords everywhere, so Google would understand what we are talking about, to say, hey, if you're a personal injury law firm, you have to talk about personal injury and all the types of things that come along with that. Well, now you have to use this kind of a pattern, so it's easier for these LLMs to understand what is the subject, what is the object, and what is the relationship between these two. So as long as you're doing that, again, chances are that you'll get picked up. The ranking strategy is more like a matrix, right? So the AI mode requires a matrix approach to ranking. You have to optimize for multiple synthetic queries simultaneously. And there's some text garble happen here. I'll format that after and before I send out the presentation. But effectively, what is happening is when you search for a query, there is a query fan out happening. And I think Google also showed, I think, some sort of a live demo at Google I/O where they show query fan out happening. And so when you search a query, and Mike also has a tool, if someone can drop in a link to Qforia, you can use a Gemini API key and actually see what queries Gemini is likely. By the way, AI mode uses a custom Gemini model to create its answers. And so what is happening is this query fan out is, I have a query, let's say, how to cook rice, and then that gets, Google's trying to create all these relevant queries related to those queries, and depending on the number of entities and relationships that are there in your queries, you will see a list of a couple dozen queries or more. You don't see it obviously because this is all happening in the back end, but if you want to, Mike's created a tool called Qforia that you could use to see at least somewhat of what this might look like for your industry, for your keywords. And so once a query fan out happens, uh, is when Google's going to go then start looking for those vectors. And so first step is you pull rankings. The second step is you generate embeddings. The third step is you score those passages, the fraggles that we talked about. Fourth is now you compare citations, and then you improve relevance. So it's a different approach to ranking than what we've been wired to. Okay, some of this I think we some of us have started using in some way, shape, or form, because we knew that conversational tone is better, and so we were trying to create content that is smaller chunks, which is, now we know those are fraggles, those passage indexing, chunking, all that good stuff, and technically how it kind of all works together. So I just wanted to share this. Here are some practical implementation tips now if we are ready to jump in and start getting into the execution mode. So first is structure your content in semantic units. And just as a reminder, today's session is more about laying down the foundation, giving everyone something to think about, and how do we think about SEO differently. And so these are just some examples that you can kind of start thinking along the lines. And think we'll do a follow-up session where we can come up with examples and tools that you can use to organize all of this in a much better way. All right. So first is structure semantic units. You break content into 50 to 100 word paragraphs that cover distinct semantic concepts. So instead of having those 300 word paragraphs, you have smaller paragraphs that allows for, because there is also this concept of context window, right? And so words are converted into tokens, and there is a limit to how many tokens can be processed in a single iteration. And so if you have content that is too long, it goes outside the context window, will not get covered, or they'll start hallucinating. You incorporate rich contextual keywords, so there are still keywords, but you call them keywords, synonyms, entities, however you want like to use them. So you still do that, but for this it is very important for you to know what entities do you want to talk about. And some tools have started doing some of this, things like Surfer or some of these other tools. But unless you know where those entities are coming from, I wouldn't like blindly rely on them. So make sure you know where they're coming from. I think there is Malhar has a question. Is
Yeah.
this hypothesis? What's the question?
I think so. Probably he's referring to is relevance engineering.
Oh,
Is this? Hmm.
hypotheses are going real. I don't know. You tell me. The way I think about this is, what Mike's trying to do is give us a different way of thinking about this. Uh, at least because it's hard if we continue down the same path for us to start thinking about differently. And so giving us something to think about differently allows us to kind of, okay, let's start from scratch. Now I'll erase everything that I've been doing, and I'll start from ground zero. Tell me where to start. And so I think that's the broader uh, us. But also as a community, I think the tools are not quite there yet. And so what do we lean on, right? All of this is great. Last two sessions that I've attended from Mike, I said, hey, all of this is great, how do I do this, right? And so because there aren't tools, I think we need as a community to come together to start building these tools. Everyone can build a little thing and contribute to the community, and as a community we can all benefit from this. And so as much as this feels like a hypothesis, all of these things that I'm talking about are very much real. You can read the patents that are linked to from, you can actually, you can just ask Gemini, or I do this all the time. I ask Chat GPT. This is a very simple. So Dijan, one of my favorite SEOs of all time, was there at SEO Week. He gave two very simple things to try. Okay, he's like, whatever Chat GPT, whatever LLM you're using, just try this to say, what entities do you associate with this brand? Let's say you work for, you used to work for Tech Mahindra. I don't know what brand do you work for now, but whatever brand you're working for, just say, what entities do you relate to brand A, which is the brand or the company that you work for, or this could be a client if you're a consultant or in the agency side, and see what output you get. Then try this. Depending on the entities, if one of these entities is the main keyword that you're trying to rank for, flip the question. Say, what brands do you associate with this entity? You would be amazed to see the result. It's so simple. We can This is like we are living in a moment which is so nice, because you can literally use LLMs to learn how LLMs work. It can't get any better than this. So the hidden playbooks are starting to become more real, more transparent. Anyway, so I hope that answers your question. uh, the last thing here I wanted to mention is we got to provide unique specific insights. So information gain as a concept is still very real, uh, unless we have some, like, let's say there are 20,000 articles, or it's a million articles about how to do SEO. Unless Krinal has his own opinion on how to do SEO, his own insights, there is no unique value that I can contribute to the corpus. Everything has already been said that I'm about to say. So as long as you have unique content or proprietary data, there is less likelihood that your content will have a chance to outrank bigger, better competitors. So try and do that. Yes, we need to rewire our thinking. I think the next Kior has a couple of questions. Let's take that. So this one's, how can we identify the right entities and related topics to cover within a semantic content strategy? It's a great question. Something that I'm trying to also work on. There is not a tool, but then there are some tools that are available out there. Uh, there are a few different ways to approach this. Okay, it's like, how simple do you want to go, or how complex, but also how accurate do you want to go? So on that spectrum of where you fall, your answer might be different. Here are a couple of things that I've tried. uh, if you're using a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs, I use Ahrefs, big Ahrefs fan. Just like, you can still do your keywords, and then you just do matching terms, and you will see a list of keywords, and then you can kind of cluster these keywords. Uh, that is you starting to get an understanding of a niche. Now, when we talk about entities, Uh, Google has NLP, right? So natural language programming API. You can actually go to the API. There is a free browse mode, and you can actually search for entities there. You can literally use that free version. You can do it right now, and it'll let you do it. I like to lean towards more what Google's using, because if you're trying to still optimize for Google, you still have to kind of try and stay close to the ecosystem that they have access to, which is there on. And it doesn't, end of the day, it doesn't matter which one you use. I think you need to fundamentally understand that entities and relationships, and how you'd be surprised when you start looking at this data is how different this is from the traditional keyword focused approach that we've been focused on. So I hope that answers your question. Oh,
Yeah,
and
that
the second part of your question is related topics to cover within a semantic content strategy. So that is all based on that vector graph that I was talking about. The closer these vectors are to the query, those are the ones that you want to cover first.
yeah. And the one that you mentioned about the NLP, Google NLP thing. So within Gemini, if we provide the right prompt, like we can directly
Yes.
pull. Yeah, because Gemini is wired with Google's NLP API, so we can directly pull it. So I tried a couple of times, and it works. Uh, Now, I think so. We have 5 minutes before we wrap this up. I'll just ask a quick question from SEO professionals lens. So, for example, if there are established brands like Bluehost or HubSpot who are already out there ranking content, like the content is being ranked on all the LLMs mostly. So they haven't moved to this new way of doing SEO through semantics or relevance and all of that. So even if they were doing the old traditional SEO approach, it's still working for them. So knowingly or unknowingly, like we have been optimizing for this
Yes.
engineering. So that's, so how do we know, and how do we strike a balance, and how do we know that okay, these were the things already covered, and so for someone who is starting new,
Yeah.
they may start with this new approach, but
Correct.
the existing ones, yeah. So I would want to know your thoughts around it.
Great question. Since you mentioned Bluehost, one thing I wanted to also kind of share quickly is da, 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 da. We just hit our all-time high non-branded traffic for Bluehost. Uh,
Lovely.
so and so we started implementing a lot of these concepts that I just talked about, and it's working. Just some background, but to your point, you're right. A lot of the content, like Bluehost, has been around since 2003 ish, and so a lot of the content when I joined back in November was already created. A lot of the website and it was already up and running, and so we aren't going to build from scratch. We have to build from where we are, and so way to approach that could be different depending on how mature the SEO is at an organization, or how well established your SEO strategy is at an organization. It is also different depending on how competitive or not your industry is, right? If you're like a small town where there's literally three plumbers and you're trying to rank for a plumbing website, like you don't have to get all this fancy and whatnot, or so sophisticated. The classic approach will still work because there are only three plumbers. Who is Google going to rank? Like I said, every query has a data set. If there is more competition, you have to kind of do this. So the way I did this at Bluehost is I started with what I had, and then I continued to build on top of it, because I am not like a software engineer that can build all these stack overnight. And let's start from the beginning. And so what I did instead is did an audit of all the content we have, right? You put everything on that vector graph, you understand the vector embeddings, and you start picking out content that is too far out from your territory. What that does, because I talked about vector embeddings and vector embedding at a page level, but there is also a site level score,
Okay.
right? So you search for web hosting, you will always almost see Bluehost. Why? Because the topical authority for Bluehost for web hosting is very, very strong. one of the
Yeah.
strongest. You ask any question about web hosting to any LLM, chances are you will see Bluehost. And so I want to continue building that topical authority. I do not want to lose that focus while we continue building out other niches. And so anything that is too far out, I'll start pruning that, or I'll start, what do I want to do with that content? That
Okay.
will automatically strengthen my topical authority for the main topic that I want to rank for. So that's step one. Just understanding what you have today and how it. So that's one. The second piece is then, well, within that vector space, you have your topics that are the closest, to the query. And so for those pages that are the closest, the documents that are the closest, you then want to start doing the whole Fraggles processing. You want to start the subject object, subject predicate object, and all of that good stuff. And so, kind of doing a content refresh, a content optimization for the existing content that you have that is the closest, right? And so this is things like uh, WordPress hosting, best WordPress hosting, or Bluehost versus SiteGround. Your bottom of the funnel content in our classical terms. You start with that and you start optimizing that, and you'll start seeing the impact there. You also do your industry level clusters, right? And so for web hosting, what is your overall cluster, what are my sub clusters, so on and so forth. And then you start, once you put everything on that vector graph, you start to understand these gaps that you need to fill in. And so that becomes your net new content strategy. These are some very simple steps to get started on
Yeah.
this journey, right? First is just understanding how this works, the technology works, and then it's like, where do I stand? Like, from my current setup, what is my presence and what am I missing out on? And then there are also very simple things, right? Like, you can start tracking AI overviews to say what queries that I rank for are already seeing AI overviews. Because if I are seeing AI overviews, chances are there is also AI mode, right? And so once you know, then you start saying, okay, what is the type of content that is being picked in AI overviews? What are those fraggles, right, that are being
Yeah.
cited? What is the type of this fraggle? What is the type of content in these fraggles? So a lot of this is still similar to way we've been doing things, is trying to re-engineer or reverse engineer what's working for our competitors and then using it for us. But the difference is, fundamentally, we understand what we are doing. You understand chunking is a concept, you understand passage indexing is a concept. And so this is why you're looking at passages,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. The things that we haven't covered today and we'll likely cover in the next session is, for each section on your page, there is also engagement signals that Google's looking for, right? And so, like, if you have a hero section, what is the click-through rate on the hero? Not the click-through rate for the overall page. What is the click-through rate on the hero? If you have a comparison section, how much time is the user spending on this comparison section? All of these signals are now, at play. I hope that answers your question.
That's fantastic. Yeah, totally, totally. And this is a great start for today's session. We uh, went beyond introduction and kind of gave you an overview of what relevance engineering is, what Fraggles, and a lot of other
Vector
macro concepts.
embeddings. Yes.
Yeah, vector embedding. So this is a great start, and this is part one of our three sessions. So we'll cover following sessions, and we'll keep you posted how we plan and schedule. So we'll have the next one next week. We'll update you on the timings. But thank you so much, Krinal bhai. I don't want to hold you. It's already overboard. So yeah, thank you
No,
so
this
much
this
for
has been
joining.
lovely. Thank you so much for hosting.
Lovely. I hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend following that. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for all the insights. We'll have you next week. And until then, thank you everyone who joined in live and those who are listening to this one. Um, See you next week.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mahar, and thank you to our attendees. I hope everyone has a good weekend.
Okay, thank you.